received an email a while ago from somebody here who is still in school and she's preparing for her first medical board exam. She wanted to know how to go about preparing for the exams and how to ace the exams. I already responded to her personally and also recommended that she reach out to some people. But I also figured out that there are other people here who may also be preparing for their exams and may not exactly know how best to go about it. So in this video, I'll be sharing with you some of the things that I know would help you very well in preparing for this exam, and some of the things that I also wish I knew as an undergraduate, and particularly as a preclinical student preparing for her first medical board exam. So, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Jennifer Ohawe. I am a dental surgeon presently based in Nigeria, and here on my channel, I talk about oral health, and life in general. So, if you're watching this video right now, chances are you are preparing for your first MB exam, or you're about to write the exam, or you're just watching this video to prepare yourself ahead of time. Whichever category you fall into, congratulations on coming this far. Now, the medical board exam, also known as the MB, is the exam that medical students and dental students write. So, if you're a dental student, you're going to be writing like five medical board exams. Yeah, about five medical board exams, right? The first three you're going to be writing with medicine and surgery, while the fourth and the fifth one will be strictly under dentistry. Now, let's focus on the first medical board exam. In this exam, there are three main courses that your knowledge is going to be tested on. That is the anatomy, physiology, and medical biochemistry. I don't know how far or close your medical board exam is, but I'm going to try to make this video as comprehensive and as encompassing as I can. Your first MB is a very, very important exam. It's not because the second and the third or the fourth ones are not important, but this first one is like a leveler. Like it tells you where you stand, basically. It helps prime you. It literally just, I don't know how to explain it, but it is something that puts you in a particular place. It's something that helps you know where you stand, generally speaking, in medical school. Anything can change, but this exam is so important. If you pass your first MB, it's going to help boost your self confidence. It's going to make you feel very good about yourself. It's going to reinforce whatever notion you have about yourself. Now, if for any reason you don't pass the exam, it is going to mess with your self esteem. It's just going to be a lot of emotional roller coaster for you, right? So, you're watching this video because you do not want to fail that exam. And I'm hoping that nobody who watches this video and goes through the things I'm going to share in this video is going to fail. Now let's get right into it. As I said earlier, you're going to be writing anatomy, physiology, and medical biochemistry. As a rule of thumb, you're not supposed to get into an example and you're encountering a topic for the first time. Like you're not supposed to see a question and you're asking yourself, have they taught us this thing? Where did they bring this question from? No, that's already bad prognosis, right? So I'm going to be walking you through the things that you're supposed to do as you're preparing for this exam. When we're in school, there's something that we're usually told: common things occur commonly. There's always the need for students, especially people who want to do exceptionally well, to want to go the extra mile, things that are above average, right? While those things are important, while it's okay to know as many things as you can lay your hands on, do not neglect the important things. There are things you're supposed to know. Know what every other person knows, and then go a step further to, add to your well of knowledge, right? As you're preparing for this exam, you know that you're going to be judged in different ways. There's a written exam, there is a practical, and then there is the oral, also known as the viva. Now, for this written exam, there's the way that you're expected to answer your questions. For somebody who wants to do exceptionally well, right? Chances are you already know your area of strength. So, knowing your area of strength means that you would also know your area of weakness. It would make no sense to put in the same amount of time in studying these three courses if you do not have the same amount of strength in the three of them. So this is what I mean. Let's say you're very, very good with physiology. You understand physiology so well, it's at your fingertips. Your CA is like in the 20s and all of that. And then you're struggling with, let's say, anatomy. It will not make sense to say I'm going to use 4 hours each per day to read these four courses, right? Because you're already good in physiology. That doesn't mean you should neglect it, but there's somewhere you're lagging behind. It also makes no sense to score an 80% in a particular course and only to have a receipt in the other course. Do you understand? So now that you know your area of strength and your area of weakness, what you're going to do is that you're going to use more time, right? You're going to use more time in studying that one that you're not very, very good at, or that you're still kind of struggling with. so that you'll be up to par. There is usually this temptation of spending more time on the one that you're really good at because you just understand it. It comes naturally. Studying the course doesn't seem like work, right? But don't do that. If you do that, you'll be shooting yourself on the leg. So you're going to focus more on the courses or on the course that you're not very, very good at. So now that you've established your sequence of reading, how are you supposed to read? Before your MB, you're supposed to have determined your reading pattern. By reading pattern, I mean when your peak hours are. Now, there are people that their peak hours are in the early hours of the morning. They do very, very well in the morning. There are people that do very, very well at night. Then there are people that do well once they wake up from a nap, regardless of the time of the day. And then there are people that just, they are all rounders and all of that. So you need to figure out which of them that you are. Personally, I'm an early morning person. If I need to do something, I have to start doing it early in the morning. If I need to start studying, right, I'm better off studying the courses I find difficult early in the morning because I assimilate better early in the morning. Now there are people that work better at night. Like when everybody's asleep, that is when they have their peak hours. So before your MB, you're supposed to figure out which of them works better for you. Of course, during MB preparations, you're going to have to read all through the day. Like you're not going to say, "Oh, I work better in the morning, so I'm going to sleep during the night" and all of that. You're still going to have to stay awake. But what this helps you do is that it helps you channel your energy, like maximize time. So if you assimilate better at night, it means that those ones that are hard, those courses that require more time, more attention, you'll be able to focus more on them at night. Whereas during the day, you can now do the other ones that you're very good at. It's important to say that when you're preparing for your MB, this is not the time to start trying out new things. Months before your MB preparation, this is when to figure out what it is that works better for you. When I was in school during my preclinical years, I was living outside the campus. So, and I had a roommate. She liked to study at night. I think she was more of a night person, and I am not a night person. But then every time she carries her bag to go to school to read, and I stay back in the room or I try to sleep, a part of me will feel so guilty that, oh, like my roommate is going to read because we were classmates and I'll be here not reading, right? So at some point, I just started going to night class with her. It wasn't such a bad idea, right? But I knew truly that I wasn't a night person. I would struggle to stay awake to read. I would you know just literally struggle through the night to read and then come back in the morning with my school bag feeling good, priding myself that I'm so hardworking. When my mom calls me on the phone, I'm like, ah, mommy, I went to night class. She'd feel like, oh, my daughter is reading and all, which I was. But then look at the downside of that. The next day I'd have to go for lectures, right? And then I'll be grumpy, tired, exhausted, drained of energy, sleepy because I didn't sleep the night before, right? And remember that I said that morning hours are my best hours, like they're my best time of the day to do anything I need to do. So now I have lectures in the morning. I'm there, physically there, but my mind is not there because I'm already tired. So I go through the day exhausted and drained of energy, and I'm not as efficient, as productive as I would have been if I had slept the night before. So I see myself losing both the day and the night because I didn't sleep the night before, and during the day that I'm supposed to be working, I'm still feeling sleepy and I'm not being very productive. So if you're a night person, right, maximize the night hours. If you're a morning person, maximize the morning hours, but resist the urge or the need to do what every other person is doing because that is what people are doing. There are people that study better in the classrooms. There are people that study better in their rooms. There are people that study better in the libraries. Figure out what works for you and stick to it, right? Stick to it. It's in the sticking to it that you're going to get results. I've talked about knowing your area of strength. I've talked about understanding your reading pattern. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the method of reading that helps you retain information. There are people that retain information when they write the things that they read. Yes, those people exist. There are people that don't like to write the things they read because they feel like it slows them down. There are people that need a schematic diagram. So whatever they read, they have to make a sketch of it to help it stick to their head. There are people that retain better when they teach other people. And I think a great number of people falling under this category. There are people that feel they understand better when they listen to people explain that thing that they've read. So by listening, it helps them connect the dots. People retain information different ways. If you're the person who understands better by listening to people, that means study groups are going to help you a lot. If you also understand better by teaching other people, then study groups can also help. Or you can even voluntarily organize tutorials for younger people, like for your younger colleagues. It would also help you retain the information. Then if you're somebody that retains better by writing, you know that writing doubles the time that you use in studying. So it also means that you have to start studying earlier than usual. So depending on what works for you, you have to know how to approach your reading and your studying pattern. But I'm saying this because weeks to your MB is not when you have to start experimenting. This is not when to start trying out new things. You're supposed to have figured out your pattern of reading, your way of reading that helps you assimilate better. There are other things you can do that can help you retain information, like use of mnemonics, even though that sometimes you may not remember the mnemonic and not remember what it's for. But then, yeah, there are use of mnemonics, imageries, whatever it is that you can use. And now the good thing is that there are audio visuals, there are apps that help you depending on what you're studying. There are anatomy apps that can help you to and it make your reading easier for you. But let me just say this, right? If you read something and you're convinced you understand it, but you're unable to explain it to somebody, then you have not fully understood that thing that you've read. And this was something I realized much later in my journey in dental school. Because sometimes you read something and you feel like, oh, I've read it, I've understood it. And when somebody says explain to me, like, oh, don't worry, I know how I'm going to write it in an exam. But then when you're writing an exam, you're expected to reproduce the information in a certain way. So if you've understood this information and then you can't explain it to somebody, like how do you now intend to reproduce it in your paper? Except you belong to the class of people who, the la cram, la pour, and la forget. If you understand something, you should be able to explain it to somebody. In fact, your ability to explain it to somebody is also a test of how much or how well you've understood that thing. As your exam is fast approaching, you're supposed to have materials available to you. By materials, I mean past question, the lecture notes, and all of those that would aid your reading, right? And then you're not supposed to be working alone. Like, don't be an island. You need your classmates, no matter how intelligent you are. You need your classmates. They're the ones that will say, "Oh, this man said this in class. This man said we should highlight this." Even things that you probably may not have taken note of. You may just be in class and you're studying and you hear someone say it and it sticks to your head. And surprisingly, that's your viva question, right? So do not work in isolation. You may be reading with someone and then you see the person holding this past question and you're like, "Well, let me quickly go through this." And lo and behold, you're seeing that particular past question being repeated. But even if it's not being repeated, it just widens your mind to how the questions come and then helps you prepare yourself on how to answer this question. Now, talking about answering exam questions, there is a way an exam question should be answered. And some of these things I figured them like much later in my journey in school. Like the person who is marking your script is marking the script of so many other people, right? The person does not have the time to read in details what you're writing. So there's a way you arrange your work that when the person looks at it, this person feels like, oh, this person already knows, like you as the person writing the exam already knows what he or she is doing, right? So when you're able to arrange your answers in that way, the person is already in a good mood marking your question paper because this person is not going to go into your head to figure out what it is that you're trying to say. So there's a way to answer questions. And what would help you in answering those questions? Synopsis. Synopsis is just like subheadings that you're going to be answering your questions on that depending on how they come. So for anatomy now, you have your introduction, the anatomy, the blood supply. So when you have that in mind, it helps you build on the topic that you're asked to write upon. Now, if you also have an image of what it is that you're being asked and you add it, it also makes your examiner know that you have a broad understanding of what you're being asked. So your synopsis are going to help you a lot, especially for anatomy, which is fast. Having synopsis is going to help you remember the things that you're supposed to write on. Now, anatomy on its own also has a practical part, which is like the steeplechase, slideshow, and all of that. For the steeplechase, you're going to be expected to identify organs, parts of the body, blood supply. It could just be anything. So they could pin any part of the human body, absolutely anything, and you're asked to identify it. So that day you're writing your steeplechase should not be the very first day you're coming in contact with a skull, right? Or your kidney or whatever it is, that should not be the very first day. So if you belong to CMDA, FECAMS, or even your student association, they could have these models them. Try and be in touch with it. Like, don't just wait for your exam to come. Randomly, make use of it. Figure out, okay, this is the tibia, this is the fibula. How do you differentiate between this and this? Oh, what foramen is this? Is this foramen ovalis? Is this foramen rotundum? How do I know which is which? Just figure out how it is. Sometimes they give you something to hold and then you hold it the wrong way and they're looking at you like, oh, are you sure you've been coming around? So acquaint yourself with these things. Do not work alone. Practice. If there are mock exams, go for those mock exams. There are times that when they organize mock, and I also felt guilty of some of these things, and you're like, oh god, time I'm supposed to be using to read other things, I don't have the energy for mock. But the truth is that the mock exam is going to help you know your area of strength and your area of weakness. And it's even better you fail the mock and pass the exam than run away from the mock and not know where you stand until the exam results are being brought out. So please attend mock exam, just anything that helps you assess yourself before the exam, right? It helps you know where you are, know where to put in more effort. Do not look down on your classmates. Like, even if you're a high flyer from secondary school, MB is different, right? It's not the way it is in secondary school. Just like I mentioned, there's a way the questions are expected to be answered. There's just a way things are being done. So you cannot do it in isolation. You need people. You need to know, okay, what is it that this lecturer expects from you? How is it that you're expected to answer this question? In fact, something happened when I was in school. I think when I was in my year two, we wrote a test on physiology. Was it year two or year three? One of them, we wrote a test on physiology, and one of my classmates scored really, really high in the test. And then we were asking her, "Oh, how did you do this? How did you do this? How did you score this?" And she was like, "Oh, there was this textbook she saw in her house, or she got it from a senior colleague, right? So that was the textbook she used in reading for the exam or for the test, and that was how she passed." And then when we went through that textbook, we found out that it was like a concise, it was like a summary of the man's notes. So probably the man was making the notes from that particular textbook. And reading the textbook directly makes you have like less per topic to cover and helps you cover a wide range of topics. As compared to us that were reading like very voluminous textbooks, and then before you finish one chapter, someone that was reading that smaller one would have read like the whole three or four or five chapters. So it just gave her an edge. So she was able to cover more compared to us that were using like a very big textbook. So imagine if we were all acting in isolation, we wouldn't be able to have this information. I'm not saying limit yourself to things that are local and all, but the truth is, at the end of the day, it is he who passes her exam that has the stuff. Chickets. There's always a narrative of, oh, it's not about passing your exam. Do you know this thing? It's true actually. It's beyond passing your exam. But you need to pass your exam to become a doctor that your before your knowledge can even be tested in the field. So if you fail the exam, it means that you don't even have the theory. So how do you want to have the practical skills if you do not have the theory? So yes, please do not isolate yourself. Mingle with your colleagues. Know what it is people are reading. Know the basic things. Like common things occur commonly. There are things that if you do not know them, you cannot be forgiven. So know those things that are very, very basic. Those things that are being re-echoed. Those things that when the senior colleagues come to class, they are asking. Get to know them. Those things that everybody in your class knows. Know it. Then, as your exam is coming closer, surround yourself with positive people, people who have positive energy. Surround yourself with people who are optimistic about the exam, no matter how tough it seems. Don't surround yourself with people who have already given up before the exam has started. So there are people that will tell you that this exam, forget it. It's receipts that I'm now preparing for. I'm no more preparing for the main exam. And you've not even written the main exam, right? So dissociate yourself with people like that because they are going to drown you. They are going to like dampen your spirit and your morale. Well, it's good to know yourself, but you've not written an exam and you're writing yourself off already. Do you understand? What is even the guarantee that the receipt that you're preparing for, that you're still going to pass it? There is no guarantee. So please put in effort, surround yourself with positive people. Someday I'm going to share a story about somebody who I met in medical school who changed my trajectory. I would have shared this in this video, but I feel like this video is already long enough. So on a very good day, I'm going to have to share that story. But you need people who are willing to put in the work, no matter how hard it is. Like it's just 50, and I know that 50 is hard. Like in medical school, 50 is not very, very easy to get, especially for your MB where they have to do close marking and do all that stuff. Although I think now they are self peddling on this the whole close marking thing. But while I was in school, there was this close marking quota that no matter what you write, you cannot score above 70. And before you're going to get 70, you're going to have to go for a distinction viva where they will drill you and ask you a lot of questions. But I think we are gradually coming out from that place. So, but surround yourself with people who are excited, people who are eager to write the exam, people who are eager to put in the work. It can be draining, it can be energy consuming, it can be tiring, especially when you have so much to read in so little time. Like it's as if you're reading but nothing is entering, but keep reading. You think it's not entering, right? But just keep reading, keep putting in the work, and don't give up. Like you'd have to make some sacrifices. You're going to have to ward off distractions. That may be when people that you've not been in contact with want to reach out to you. That may be when there are occasions and things to distract you. It's okay to like have a relief. I call it comic relief. Like just have something recreational to do somehow in between, but don't overindulge yourself because you know what you're headed towards. You know why you're here. It doesn't make sense that a course of 6 years, I mean, there is a Nigerian factor already that can make you spend 8 years in school studying a 6 years course. Now it doesn't make sense that on your own accord you don't put in the work, or you just become lackadaisical about it and then you still lose an extra year. Do you understand? It makes absolutely no sense. So just put in the work. There are people that lose a year not because of any fault of theirs. At the end of the day, when you pass that exam, the excitement, the joy, the satisfaction is going to come to you. People are going to tell you congratulations. Like, make up your mind that you're going to read and work as hard as it's going to require you to pass that exam, because the first MBA exam is, as I said, is like a leveler. It helps you know where you stand, and it's not something you want to gamble with, right? So put in as much work as you can. So generally, be humble, have a teachable spirit, be willing to approach people, and then when people approach you, be willing to share the information and knowledge you have. I mean, the space is enough for everybody on the sky to fly. Like, when you become a doctor, you're not going to be the only doctor there is. You will not be the first doctor, neither will you be the last. So there is no need hoarding information. There is no need, like, trying to withhold things from your colleagues because you want to be the only one. On that day, you will not be happy if you're the only one that is inducted into the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria. So there is really nothing to hide. Share as much information as you can. Surround yourself with positive people and pray, pray, pray. Like, I cannot even talk about praying enough. God favors the hardworking. I remember having an interview with one of my colleagues, and she said this. She said that God favors the hardworking, and it's true. God is so principled not to favor people who are hardworking. There is always a saying about pray like everything depends on God and work like everything depends on you. Sometimes you do something and you will forget it. There are times that there's so much to read that you can't even read everything within the time frame you have. What determines is the Spirit of God that can guide you and say, okay, read this, read this, read this. And then you read it, and surprisingly, you come into the example and you're seeing those things that you've read. At the end of the day, you're going to be a doctor regardless, by God's grace. And you now realize that it's even way beyond the things that you see in theory. Like, you're going to be dealing with humans, you're going to be dealing with people. And it's just God that strengthens us to do the things that we do. So don't get carried away. Don't sideline God and feel like, okay, now I'm so good, I am super duper intelligent, I can have it all figured out on my own. Because life's journey is a long journey. Beyond becoming a doctor, there are other things that are ahead of you in life that you cannot do by your own willpower. So please do not sideline God in your journey, because you will really need Him every step along the way. And this journey is just starting. You don't even know other things that are ahead of you. Prayer is something that I personally cannot do without, because you may not be able to read everything page by page, word for word. And even if you read them, what is the guarantee that you'd recall all those things that you've read, right? But it's the Holy Spirit that will guide you and say, okay, this is, read this. And you could just be flipping through your textbook, and then you come across something, and then you look at it and it stays. I remember some of the exams I've written, right? And it's not like, oh, I've read so much for the exam. And then I just open my notebook, and I'm like, okay, let me read this thing. And I've never seen it in any past question. Lo and behold, I go into the example and it's the first question. So the Holy Spirit is the one that will guide you. He will even be the one to tell you, okay, this is how to answer this question. So don't do life without God. When you're preparing for this exam, give it your very, very best shot. From the people I've interviewed on this channel, you'd see that there is always God in the center of all the things they've done. And the people I've interviewed here, they are not small people, they are high flyers. I'm talking about our best graduating students, people that have had so many distinctions and so many awards for having academic excellence. So you'd always hear them talk about God. It tells you that no matter how good you are, you cannot still do this journey without God. So I want to pray for the person watching this video, whether the person is yet to write the first MBA exam, or the person is rewriting the first MBA exam, or the person is hoping to become a medical student or dental student and hope to be able to be in a position to write this exam. I'm just going to pray that God opens the eyes of your understanding, that you yield to Him in the way that He expects you to yield to Him, that you're able to read and understand, that you're able to have speedy assimilation, and that you're able to reproduce the things that you're expected to know in the manner that is expected of you. I pray that your relationship with God grows, and that you do not do life with the strength of your own will, that you yield to God every step along the way. And at the end of the day, when you arrive at the destination God has in mind for you, that He's going to be proud of how far you've come and how much lives you've touched along the way. I pray for God's guidance and protection upon you. I pray that you're able to have the discipline to ward off every form of distraction that is going to come your way. I also pray that God, you protect them and keep them in good health. That even as they aim and intend to become doctors, that they will not just be any doctor, they will not just be ordinary doctors, that they will be exceptional doctors. That even when patients come across them, that they will know that there is something different about this particular person. In the mighty name of Jesus, I have prayed. Amen. I wish you success in your exam as you're preparing. I pray that you're able to come across the materials and the resources that you need, even if it's financial resources. Like there are people who may not have money to pay for their MBA exam. I pray that God, who brought you this far, is going to supply all your needs according to His riches, and that you'll be able to succeed and go through this stage and look back in gratitude to God. If you have any question, any contribution, please leave it in the comment section. If there's something you want to say to me and you feel like it's so personal or you don't want to leave it in the comment section, you can write me on my email. My email address is jenniferohanwevlog@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and I wish you the best in your coming exam. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and turn on the post notification. If you found this video worth your while, if you found it helpful, if you found it encouraging, please share it with your friends and people you know would also benefit from it. Take care of yourself and see you in my next video. Bye.